All right. Sound check, sound check. Let's lower this a little bit so I don't have to sit so straight because I'm feeling a bit tired. All right, we got Ultimaza and C Farsight competing for first in chat. It's like best in show, but not dogs. All right, everybody, welcome to Canhammer TV. I'm starting a bit earlier than the publicized time, but that's because I'm tired and I got home early, so we're going to do the thing. Tonight is Tactica episode 38. We will be debriefing on the RTT that I went to last weekend, like the weekend just passed. Tomorrow night on the podcast, we'll be joined by Francois and Nick, and of course Chris, and we'll be talking about the RTT again, but from a more wide-ranging angle. Tonight, we're going to talk about my performance. Spoilers, was not good. And then list changes and the new 9.4.8 list. So, the list I took was the 9.4.7 list, which was Shadowkeepers, Vanguard, Trajan, Shield Captain on bike with all the trimmings, Vexilla, 5 Alars, 4 Aquilon, 5 Venatari, Bertha with the twin accelerators, and 2 units of Sisters with 2 Rhinos. That's the list I've been playing for at least 2 or 3 weeks now. So this was going to be another test for it. And at this tournament were the usual suspects. So basically the same people as last time, except we had a new guy, Rickard, who's one of the patrons. So thank you, Rickard. And he showed up with Knights. And we had Dom, who's been on the channel before, and he brought Salamanders. So Jeremy this time, who's in the chat, welcome Jeremy. Jeremy brought Admech this time instead of Dark Angels. He won it last time with Dark Angels. Chris brought Sisters again. Nick brought Chaos with Death Guard and Thousand Suns mix. Francois bought his newly minted White Scars. And who else is there? Oh, Will. Will Paul brought Death Guard again without Morty. We'll be talking about that. I think that's it. Yeah, Dom bought Salamanders, and yeah. Okay, so it's 8 people, socially distanced, the same 8 people, and so it's good to go. Okay, so first round I matched up against Will again, so rematch from the last game of the last RTT. His list this time, no Morty, so he had basically the Plague Marine bomb with the mortal grenade dude. He had Typhus. He had the usual Nurgle Demon Prince with all the trimmings. He had 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, 3 of the little Blight Hauler dudes, a couple of units of zombies just to hold stuff. And he had a Rhino. Trying to think what else he had. I think he had, I think that was his list basically. So I'll put up the table here. All right, so this is the table. It's I can't remember what mission number, but we're basically playing Hammer and Anvil, so from left to right. I'm starting on the right, and he's starting on the left. I picked the right because of this annoying sort of lava rock thing on that side. But otherwise, I mean, the table's pretty sparse. But, it doesn't really matter. He's got some Melta on the Blight Haulers to worry about. Other than that, he's not really shooting much. And his Plague Burst Crawlers can hit me wherever. So my game plan basically was to hold my 2 to 3 objectives and push up whichever side he allowed me to push out that didn't have Plague Marines in it. Oh, and he had a unit of 5 Blight Lord Terminators. So he deployed his Plague Marines in the bottom left here, his Plague Burst Crawlers moving up this bottom of the table here, and he put all his Blight Haulers and the Tallyman, that's it, and Nurgle Prince and Typhus kind of in the middle. And so I deployed everything kind of behind this stacked Crate Seer, just to make sure I didn't get hit by Melta from the Blight Haulers. And then that was it. Now, for secondaries, he took Ritual, because he had Demon Prince and Typhus, and to sit in the middle here to just do the Ritual 3 times. And so I was trying to deny his Ritual. He also took Killmore, Grind Him Down, which was probably not a great pick against me. And I took Scramblers and Recon and something else. I can't. Oh, and Abhor the Witch. So, in the end, what happened was I just, I don't worry about the Plague Burst Carlos because I can't kill them. So he moved his Plague Marines across the bottom of the table here. So I moved my whole army across the top of the table, and I never got grenaded. So never once did I get grenaded in that game. And I killed the Demon Prince, did his first Ritual, then dove into my lines and then died. And then I managed to tie up and pin a Blight Hauler against those blue crates at the top to avoid a turn of shooting. And then my Venatari dropped in to that rune in the top left, ate some fire, and then came across and basically stole objective number 3 and got me my last Scramblers. And I, with a combination of 3+ deny from Sisters, some horrible Psychic Ritual rolling by Will, and some 1 CP deny strats, I denied him his Ritual. So that combined with no grind them down, and basically kind of won me the game there. So I think I won that one like 70 to 50 something. So it was a nice win for the Custodes there. Right at the end, I needed to kill Typhus to stop him doing his last Ritual, and also to get me my second Abhor kill, and Trajan just managed to do it before eating a whole bunch of Plague Marines and dying. So that was a good game, but man, it was hard. It was a thinking game, super strategic, and after that, and then after a pizza lunch, I was wiped. So going into game 2 after lunch was against Dom. So let me pull up the table. Yeah, okay. So here's the picture. Here's the table against Dom. So basically, this is the Dawn of War deployment with these 6 objectives. Now there's 2 bastions up here, and these 2 square buildings were not ruins, and they were not as wide as they look. Not even like barely fit a rhino there, and so it was a difficult deployment. These ruins are very short. In fact, he wanted to make these not obscuring, but I said no, we got to make these obscuring, otherwise it's game over. So Dom was playing 2 units of aggressors, 1 flamer unit and 1 bolter unit. He had a unit of eradicators. He had a biker cap. He had the usual tripped out chaplain. He had a Scorpius. He had 2 relic contemptors with Laz and Cyclone and Fist. And he had 2 Landspeeder Storms and 3 units of scouts. And a drop pod with Grav. All salamanders. Seems like too much stuff, but anyway. So basically this was going to be difficult, and I made some bad choices because I was tired, and I put my rhinos behind these buildings, but they weren't big enough, and just a sliver was visible, and he managed to snipe off both my rhinos in the first turn with a Dreadnought on the top left and the Eradicators and the Dread on the top right. And then the Sisters got picked off by Land Speeders and Scouts, and so I lost like 4 units in like the first turn. My objective units, the rest of my army was huddled behind this ruin at the bottom of the screen. So it was not great. I actually split my Alaris in this game to try and give me some board presence to get onto the middle objectives. I managed to get Bertha and some Terminators onto this middle left objective, where despite all my shooting, a Land Speeder Storm survived with 1 wound. And then Terminators made it into combat against Scouts and fluffed. Anyway, and then I was eating Scorpius and Eradicators the whole game. Venatari came down around the middle right of the board, shot. And he had 3 melee Centurions, Assault Centurions, right here in the middle, top right, top middle. Venatari came down, popped some Fury Firing Patterns, and wasted the Centurions, and then charged the Eradicators and killed them. But then they got toasted by aggressors infiltrating off the side. And then Bertha over here managed to make it into the middle of the board here, and then Flamers aggressors infiltrated and roasted him with flamers. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like flamers should be able to kill Bertha, but it is what it is. And that's basically it. I got tabled like top of 3. It was bad. I scored 10 points in that game because I couldn't hold these bottom 2 objectives and I couldn't contest the middle objectives. So I scored 10 points that whole game and then got tabled top of 3. It was bad. This mission I find very hard because it's so wide apart, these 2 objectives that are ours. The sisters and the rhinos definitely help with that. And they got killed so easily and so quickly. Oh, the drop pod with the grav came in the bottom right, took out everything there. So that was a really bad loss to salamanders, and took that one on the chin for sure. Not great. Okay. So the final game. Okay, here's the here's the final game. I think it might be upside down. It might be not. Okay, so this is a game against Jeremy with his admech. So he's got 3 disintegrators. He got one of the transport Scorpius things with a bunch of electro priests in there. He's got 4 robots with call and the usual characters. He's got 2 units of 3 horses, and he's got 2 of the obnoxious admech flyer things, and then a couple of like ranger units or something at the back. And so this is going across the table again, hammer and anvil, and unfortunately this ruin in the middle was turned this way instead of turned across the board, and that made a huge difference in the amount of line of sight blocking I could actually get. There wasn't a lot of it, and the objective, my main objective in the middle here, was right in the open, unfortunately. And so eventually the shooting just took its toll. The planes came in, dropped a bunch of bombs, whittled the Venatari down. To Jeremy's credit, he targeted the Venatari first, took 1 or 2 guys out first turn, and then I had to try and kill these flyers on the first turn, and I split fire a bit too much, and I didn't kill them. I didn't want to charge my Venatari to finish it off because of firing lanes. So the 2 flyers survived for 2 turns, and then they died. And then I managed to move this top group here, which is Venatari and Shield Captains, up to get this middle objective at the top there. But then Jeremy did a cool thing. He shot his transport forward, unloaded all his Electro Priests, and then the Electro Priests basically sat on the objective number 2 here, so I had to deal with them, but they killed my sister unit because I put them too far forward, and so they were on 2 up invuln, and so I put my whole army to kill them, and then he let them die, and then now my whole army just got wasted by the shooting. So, yeah, it wasn't a good game. I scored 14 points, I think, this game. It's better than 10, but the total last 2 games of the tournament, I scored 24 points. I think I got tabled on 2 or top of 3 again on that game. So that was not good. I was not able to make any inroads there. And, yeah. Okay. So, list. Okay, so taking away the fact that the tables were a little bit light and that I was tired, take away all those things. If I critically look at the way my list performed, okay, first thing, one thing that really came to my attention this time, and it was not the same last time, vehicles. So we hadn't had a lot of vehicle meta, if you can call a meta what we have here in Ottawa, just 8 guys playing. But we saw it on the weekend. So Will Paul had 3 Playburst Crawlers, 3 Blight Haulers. So he had 6 vehicles. Dom had Scorpius, 2 Dreadnoughts, 2 Landspeeder Storms. So another, 5 or 6 vehicles. Then we had, and a Rhino, Will Paul had a Rhino. Then we had, Jeremy had 4 Scorpius, 2 Flyers, 4 Robots. So lots of vehicles. Chris brought 3 Exorcist tanks and 6 Mortifiers. Lots of vehicles. There were 4 Knights there. Francois brought 2 Impulsors, which are hard and annoying as hell to kill. And And I think Nick had like 1 or 2 Plague Burst Crawlers or something as well in his Chaos list. So there were vehicles everywhere. And I only realized that at the end of the day how many vehicles there were and how little I could do to them effectively. So the vehicle meta is here. So that was one thing where my list underperformed. The girls and the rhinos did their job, except for the games where I gave them up. But I've been toying with the idea that I don't need to double down on both of them. So that's another thing. The 4-man Aquilon unit performs okay. And I'm not sure the strength 10 is extra worth the points at the moment. My 2 characters are amazing. Trajan, gotta have Trajan. Shield Captain on bike with Unstoppable Destroyer, so good, except for the Marine game where I threw him away, but I had to send him somewhere to get objectives for me. So, that's great. Terminators do Terminators. Venatari, always amazing. Venatari performed so well. They're my real shooting. And then there's Bertha. So Bertha has been underperforming. She has 2 roles. One is to shoot elite infantry or chaff, and the other is to be a distraction carnifex. She does shoot well, but I tell you what, on tables better than the ones we had, it's pretty easy to hide from Bertha. Number 1. Number 2, against good players, she's not much of a distraction carnifex because people don't go for it. Maybe they did a few weeks ago, a month ago, 2 months ago, but people have stopped falling for it now. So she's not even much of a distraction carnifex. And she gets tied down in combat. She can shoot into combat, obviously, but that's still a turn of not shooting something else. And putting a fist on her, it kind of makes her more expensive and just cuts her shooting in half. And she might not actually get to punch that many things. So it seems like a bad compromise. So all in all, I felt like Bertha was underperforming. And her shooting not super consistent. So going from 4.7 to 4.8. Okay, so I've toyed with the idea of playing Carlos's list last weekend. And if you watched the show last night, you heard all about Carlos's list. And I really liked his list, and he really liked mine. We've been talking about it behind the scenes a lot. And he feels like my list is is more of an all-comers list, and his is a little bit skewed, and he makes up for the skew by good play. And so I'm trying to meld the two together with 4.8. I'm trying to address the weaknesses that I just pointed out, and with some of the tech that he's been running because I like it, but trying to keep the all-comers approach. There's a few things that he's willing to give up that I'm not willing to give up. He's willing to give up the Shield Captain on bike with Unstoppable Destroyer. I feel like that's so good that you have to run it. And it's just not half as good on a foot guy. It might even give up Trajan. And I feel like starting at 8 CP, you need Trajan. We agreed that probably it's hard to know how many sisters units and rhinos is best. Probably not 3, but maybe more than 1. It's hard to know. And then we all agree that Terminators is the core of the army. So we've been talking a lot, and we kind of I came up with my 4.8 list and been working on it. And so here is 9.4.8. I guess you could call it 9.5.1, but I decided to keep as the first time we're introducing sisters. So 9.4, and the 0.8 version. And this will go up on the Discord in a little bit. I'll pin it up there. So it is Shadowkeeper still. Let me just pull it up, make sure I got it right. Okay, so Shadowkeepers. We got Trajan. We got the tripped out bike captain still. So those 2 characters still in there. We have 5 Alaris still. The 4 Aquilon have been replaced with 4 Alaris. So the main difference, Toughness-wise, they're exactly the same. So I don't expect to notice a huge difference with subbing 4 Aquilon for 4 Alaris. 4 Alaris for 4 Aquilon. I needed to do that for the points. So I have a total of 9 Alaris, and I'm debating whether to go 6 and 3 to make a 3-man unit much easier to drop in, maybe backfield, scramblers, that sort of thing. A little sort of shenanigans unit that can split and things like that. So I'm debating doing 6 and 3 versus 5 and 4. I'll probably just play around with it. Doesn't really matter probably. And then I still have 1 unit of Sisters and a Rhino. So I dropped the second unit of Sisters and a Rhino. I got the Vexilla. I got my 5 Venatari for movement, for shooting. And I have the Ares. And that's my anti-vehicle fix. So Carlos really convinced me, and I was tempted to play it last weekend, but after talking last night with him, I'm convinced to try it at least. This thing will kill vehicles for sure. Has some pretty hardcore vehicle shooting, especially if you can fly it around so that Trajan's nearby. It has 20 D6 max bombs twice, which is great. That is going to throw a lot of mortals on things, something that we can never do. We have no mortal wound output, so doing throwing out bombs like that is amazing. This thing has an obnoxious 160 millimeter round base, which basically covers an objective. So if you land your Ares on an objective, nobody can have that objective. So that's good. And if you're not doing that, you can move block, because not a lot of things can move through that base and not be on it. So move blocking is still a thing. This is auto 2 points for recon, basically, and make it easier to get 3. So that's a secondary kind of lockdown, one that sometimes we struggle with, but we kind of force to pick sometimes. It is hard to kill, so it's T8, 22 wounds, 3 up, 5 up invuln. It can be -1 to hit. Obviously, it can be made -2 to hit for things. A lot of things now getting +1 to hit all over the place. You can make it -1 strength because of Grim Responsibility. You can give it a 5 up Funeral Pain against mortals. And when it dies for 2 CP, it can shoot again. Or explode if you really want to throw out more mortals. So it's got some tricks. And 430 points. So some of that came from Bertha. So Bertha's gone, 260 points into it. And then this 1 Sisters unit, 1 Rhino unit gone. So that's another 135 points. So, and then changing the Alaris to Aquilon kind of was the clincher. And that's it. And I think I had enough points to throw 5 daggers. I had like 15 points left over. I threw a dagger on all my Venatari to make them a little bit more pokey in combat. Give that extra attack. And that's it. So that is the new 9.4.8 list, which is going to be quite a lot more anti-vehicle, reach out and touch someone sort of thing. Now, I'm just thinking back at the games I played. If I'd played this list, what would have happened? So against Death Guard, I could have taken out those Blight Haulers much easier. Probably could have taken out Rhino. Definitely could have taken out Rhino. Taken out 1 or 2 Plague Burst Crawlers. I'm not sure he had much in the way of ability to kill my the Ares and get my recon easier, etc. So that's the upsides there. Against Dom, that thing kills the Scorpius easy. All right, Scorpius is a pain in the ass. Kills 1 to 2 Dreadnoughts easy. Maybe even first turn, just clips the Dreadnoughts off. Landspeeder Storm's obviously going to die hardcore. So has utility there. Last game against Jeremy. So many vehicles. I mean, if I could get lucky, I'd kill 1 or 2 robots in the first turn. That kind of neuters the robot hit a little bit. Kill 1 or 2 disintegrators, Scorpius tanks. Help kill the flyers. I mean, it's got a lot of utility, obviously, against that list. help me get recon because I got like 0 recon in that game. So there's a lot of utility there. Move block those robots. Those robots aren't moving through that base anytime soon. So I'm going to play this list for a little bit if we get to play right now due to COVID. Who knows when I'll actually get to try the list out. But that is the 9.4.8 list. It will be pinned in the Custodes channel of the Discord. And we'll see how that goes. So that's the new list moving forward. Bertha retired for now. So that's it. A short show. But just wanted to put the new list out there, share my experience at the RTT. There was supposed to be another one in October, but we're having a deep look as to whether we can do that or not, given the new COVID situation up here. Probably won't be able to. And as I announced before, we have to take a couple of weeks from having games over here at my house. With the start of school, we've had a case of COVID in the school. So it's too risky right now to have people over. So there won't be any games for the next couple of weeks, I'm afraid, but we're going to keep the content rolling. And yeah. All right. So if people have questions, please put it in the chat. I've got a few questions here on the Discord that I'm going to answer. Okay. I want to use your list, I guess my old list 4.7, but don't have 4 Aquilon terminals. What would you replace them with? 4 Alaris. Straight up. There you go. Do you still insist on keeping Bertha? Well, I have answered that. Do you think it's fine to include more anti-vehicle? I have answered that. Run more vehicles. So I think it's that was one of the downsides of having like 3 Sisters and Rhinos units, because then you're starting to give away points for the big game. I can never remember what that secondary is called, the big game hunter one. So now I have a Rhino and an Ares, so there's really not a good secondary there to kill vehicles. Titan Slayer against the Ares is probably not a great idea. So yeah, so I think that's fine. So there's a question, dropping Sisters for guard. So Master Hoffa, if maybe you're new here, the whole premise of my channel is that I play pure. So there's no souping. So yes, I think guard is really good. People have been playing Scions as soup, and I think that's great. I think that's probably more powerful than putting Sisters in the list. But I only play pure. That's the ethos of the channel, so I won't do that. But I think that, as Carlos mentioned last night, I think that's probably stronger. Yeah. Okay. Is it time to pull out the Orion and Ares? We answered that. Okay. Assuming a mostly Space Marine meta game split between Salamanders and White Scars, Iron Hands, broken up various Xenos factions, would an all Custodes list no SOS running a small number of regular guard bikes, Alaris, Trajan, Bertha, be worth shaving down the bikes to run? Sorry, I don't quite understand the question, but I think the bottom of the question is like bikes versus Venatari. Well, I think they're different. I think Venatari are very good. I think bikes can be very good. I think you just decide which one you want based on what you want them to do. What are your thoughts on Unleash the Lines for large Terminator squads to mitigate against Smite Spam and Salamander fire? Okay, so I did that. I did that against Salamanders, and you know what? They just have enough firepower to kill all your Terminators separately. So it's not a big deal. Salamanders has plenty of ways of killing your split up Alaris Terminators. How do you think the new core keyword will affect Custodes? Well, we chatted about that yesterday with Carlos. I think it's going to affect everybody, and we don't really know what's going to be core. I suspect it will be Guardians, hopefully Terminators and not just Alaris, and bikes, and maybe Venatari if we're lucky will be core. Everything else will be non-core. All the vehicles, dreadnoughts, none of those things will be core. So it might not affect us too much, hopefully. The other thing to note is that we don't get it till our codex is out. We might not get a codex for a year or more, so I wouldn't worry too much about it right now. What about large Terminator squads to make Avenge the Fallen a trap card? Sorry, I don't really understand that question. I'm sorry. Sean Stryker, thoughts on the Land Raider with 2d6 picking the highest strat? Yeah, so I think the Land Raider is cool. 4 las cannons, auto hitting, wounding pretty well, and then spending a CP to reroll your d6. I mean, it would be interesting to see if las cannons get changed because Melta's got changed. If las cannons were a little bit more reliable, without having to spend a CP, that would be better. Otherwise, I think like a Land Raider is decent anti-vehicle and is fairly hard to kill, so it kind of fills that slot as well. So yeah, you could certainly run the Land Raider. Just the Orion is obviously more expensive, is harder to kill, it has more wounds, has an invuln, but and then it's just got a lot of other stuff going for it. It's fly, it's -1 to hit, it's got the mortal wound bombs twice, and it's much more of a guarantee to kill a vehicle than the Land Raider. So we'll see. Maybe it's too far in the other direction. Maybe we'll come back to using Land Raider again. I don't know. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll test it out. Question literally just came in. How do you decide how to play the game and deploy, or does that come with experience? That's a great question. I don't know if I'm the expert, but I think you have to think about how you're going to win, how you're going to win the game, how your opponent is going to win the game, and then formulate a game plan and try and execute it. And your deployment is just part of your game plan. If you are trying to deploy and you can't figure out how you want to deploy, then you haven't figured out your game plan yet. So that game against Death Guard was a perfect example. My game plan was to put a Rhino and Sisters in each side and then hedge my bets and go in the middle. Because I knew based on the secondaries he's picked that he was going to have to go to the middle with at least one of his characters. And then the rest depended on where he put his stuff. And it just so happened that he put his Plague Marines on one side of the board, so I just shot my army to the other side of the board. So I never had to deal with the whole grenade thing. So I think you just have to have a game plan like that and then just execute it. So I knew I did not want my Venatari eating Plague Burst Crawler for a couple of turns while they moved up the board. So I deep struck them, and I knew he did not have enough screening, and he had to move his army up to support his characters in the middle, so he would not be able to screen them out from dropping in his back. So that was a conscious decision to deep strike them with that plan in mind, and that they would get me my deep scramblers. So you have to set these things in motion before you come to deployment, then you already know how to deploy. Most of the time, I deploy my army, and I don't need to wait for the opponent because it's the same. So yeah. Okay. All right, so that's all the questions on the chat. And that is all the questions on the Discord. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Bit of a short show tonight. Super tired. We will be back tomorrow night at the usual time of 9 o'clock with the podcast episode, and we'll hear more about the tournament that was on the weekend. And so thanks very much for watching, guys. Thank you for following and subscribing. Thank you to our patrons for supporting. Very much appreciated. Thank you to all our sponsors. Thank you for sticking with us, and we will see you tomorrow night.